Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, firstly, I would like to commend the opposition leader for her brilliant contribution on the response to this budget. Madam Speaker, she would have delivered a budget, deliver recommendations that the people needed to hear. Madam Speaker, to rebut the member that spoke just now, I would appreciate if all the members and ministers coming to the podium will not just come and itemize the successes of their ministry and speak of areas that is not part and parcel of the constituencies of the 41 elected members of this House. Madam Speaker, what we just heard are a lot of deliveries from the member, but I would have appreciated if the member would have stated, when it comes with regards to self-help or the home improvement grant, how much each respective constituency would have received. Give a true account for taxpayers' money. Because I sat and listened over 45 minutes of projects, and up to now, you have no true assessment of where these projects was executed. Only Port of Spain, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I stand before this honorable House, proudly representing the constituency of Moruga, Tableland. Madam Speaker, and it is a privilege to serve the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, something I hold dear to my heart. However, Madam Speaker, my heart cries for this nation because the last 8 years since September 2015, it has had to endure consequences of decisions of a government that is visionless. A government that has failed to energize the hope of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. A government, simply put, is ineffective. This ineffectiveness is seen almost immediately, Madam Speaker, from the reading of that budget presentation on Monday. Promises and regurgitation was what we heard, Madam Speaker, for 4 hours. Madam Speaker, the theme used in this budget, Madam Speaker, stressed on diversification. Madam Speaker, but this budget is far from that. In fact, the blind could see that there has only been a regurgitation, a retardation of Trinidad and Tobago economy. And as for, again, the word diversification, the only thing diverse about the PNM government is how diverse they have gotten in their excuses of non-performance. Clearly, the PNM government does not understand, Madam Speaker, when they say the word diversification, because the industries that would lead us to a diverse economy has been deprived of the much-needed resources, Madam Speaker, and it's only when the partnership government was in office from 2010 to 2015, we saw some semblance of diversification. This leads me to my first substantive contribution. That is, the PNM government has failed the tourism industry. Madam Speaker, tourism and culture has far been treated as a bastard child underneath this government for the last 8 years. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister has acknowledged in his presentation the importance of tourism and the cultural sectors, stating that, and I quote, "These sectors are key drivers of our diversification and transformation agenda and for advancing the non-energy sector growth." The Honorable Minister then went on to use the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 as the reason for the decline of the tourism sector, and so to provide us in this honorable house with statistics which he claims shows a revitalization of the tourism sector. However, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister failed or neglected to highlight that the tourism sector in Trinidad and Tobago has been on a decline since the PNM government took office. According to the United Nations World Tourism Organization, Trinidad and Tobago in the last 2 decades saw the highest revenue from tourism in the year 2014. Who was in government in the year 2014? Madam Speaker, the partnership government, with a revenue of $875 million, which represented a staggering 3.2% of the country's gross domestic product. Madam Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago has not been able to reach such benchmarks since. As the statistics from 2016 shows that revenue from tourism has been on a rapid decline, with revenue from tourism dropping as much as $708 million in 2016 to $541 million in 2018, and reaching as low as $481 million in 2019, according to the UN Tourism website. Madam Speaker, these numbers tell a story of the PNM government's performance, which, with respect to the tourism sector, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, was on the decline. The narrative is in the numbers, and the narrative affirms the opposition's contention that the PNM government is visionless and really has no clue as to what is needed to diversify our economy. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister has indicated that the PNM government is ensuring that our tourism product become increasingly attractive so that destination Trinidad and Tobago remain broadly competitive. Madam Speaker, can the Honorable Minister advise who are the comparators in the competitive index that he's referencing to? The advertisement by the Honorable Minister is simply not the truth of what this nation is experiencing with respect to tourism. Madam Speaker, the same statistics of the United Nations World Tourism Organization reveals that while Trinidad and Tobago records tourist arrivals in the hundreds of thousands each year during the period 2016 to 2019, our competitors, such as Barbados and Jamaica, were recording tourist numbers in the millions, and with effect, revenues in the billions US dollars, Madam Speaker. Trinidad and Tobago, underneath the PNM administration, has not been competitive in the tourism industry. The reason for this, Madam Speaker, I would say is because the PNM government is in fact failing to manage the sector properly. Madam Speaker, the PNM government in fact failed in managing and maintaining our cultural and historical assets as attraction for domestic or even international tourism. Madam Speaker, our infrastructure is failing all over the country, deplorable roads. In an article supported by Loop News on the 13th of March, 2023, titled Strategic Shift Needed for TNT's Tourism Product, which captured the findings of the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus paper titled Post-Independence Challenges for Caribbean Tourism Development, a Solution-Driven Approach Through Agenda 2030. Cities, Madam Speaker, this article cites Trinidad and Tobago's tourism as a second-class industry for meaningful employment, profitable investment, and a last resort for the pursuit of a higher education. The article indicated that one of the significant challenges for Trinidad and Tobago tourism sector emerging out of the research is the inclusion of effective policies that steers the destination towards becoming a smart destination, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the article goes on to itemize what is needed for us, Madam Speaker, to become that tourism destination. Madam Speaker, each year as our tourism product declines, we await with bated breath some sort of direction from this government. But with every budget, it never comes. For the PNM government to produce research together with policies that are geared towards raising sustainability awareness within our tourism sector, Madam Speaker. But what does this PNM government give us? Excuses, more excuses, and regurgitation. Madam Speaker, I endorse the UWI St. Augustine paper, as we must engage in research agendas that aids those within the tourism value chain to understand the socioeconomic consequences of sustainable action or inaction. There exists the need to reflect real research in the National Economic Assessment and annual budgets, not just cut and paste and regurgitation every year. But this isn't the case with this PNM government, as they have brought less and less to the table each year. Madam Speaker, when we look at our sister isle, let's take a closer look at our beautiful twin island state of Tobago. Records show that Tobago has had a low tourism multiplier effect. The world, myself, and everyone is asking, how? How could an island that is so beautiful, blessed with a plethora of scenic beaches, diverse ecology, rich culture, underperform in the tourism industry market? How could an island, Madam Speaker, with the reefs and historical sites struggle to generate revenue? Madam Speaker, what a shame, but that shame the PNM government must bear. But this is what happens when you are led by a government that prefers to stifle its people because of political differences. A government that goes on a witch hunt when the people decide to lend their support in a different direction. A government who prefers to see its citizens go without employment and resources because they lost their votes. Such societal ills, Madam Speaker, we on this side of the bench will never tolerate. Our vision for this nation isn't airy-fairy or vikey-vike. It is concrete and specifically tailored for each island. As it relates to Tobago, the UNC's political agenda, this party has already outlined, and you would have heard my political leader through the consultation, let Tobago say what Tobago wants. And she would have outlined what was proposed, Madam Speaker. The UNC has done its due diligence and has answered some of the questions, and we leave the rest to Tobago to project. Madam Speaker, I am more than happy to share our plans, and I hope for the sake of our Tobagonians, the Honorable Minister copies several of the things that I am about to say and that was said by my honorable political leader. I implore the Honourable Minister to move away from his outdated thinking and recognize the niche markets that Tobago has the potential to provide. Madam Speaker, under the UNC-led administration, Tobago would see the establishment of a state-of-the-art cruise ship marina complex. Madam Speaker, Tobago would see a fully functioning and operational, efficient sea bridge and equally reliable air bridge. As seen, Madam Speaker, this is needed. As seen in an article reported by Trinidad and Tobago Guardian on the 8th of April 2023, hoteliers' transport to Tobago still a major problem. That was then, and that is still today, Madam Speaker, as our newspaper articles has not changed. The deficiencies of Tobago's transport system have left patrons to rebook, stranded, Madam Speaker, and this should not be. Caribbean Airlines, despite rebranding, seem to can't get it right for the patrons or the employees. Can the Honourable Minister advise what are the plans to inspire the staff of CAL organization and to not have a repeat of the sick-out, Madam Speaker, that affected our tourism locally and internationally, Madam Speaker? On the 22nd of March 2023, the Newsday reported in an article entitled Tobago Hoteliers Group Disconnected Between CAL and Travelers, which captured the sentiments of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association. Madam Speaker, that was then, citing that there is a disconnect in the service being provided by CAL and the demands of the consumers. The president of the Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association stated that the Tobago's tourism product to grow and be sustainable, airlift between Trinidad and Tobago must be reliable. Madam Speaker, this is not the state still today, 8 years after this PNM government. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister has not addressed how we have gotten here, nor has he answered the call of the citizens to make it right. Madam Speaker, Tobago ought to be a duty-free port, as stated by my political leader in her presentation. The UNC government will create Tobago based on the THA-owned state enterprise and the strategic operation on the island. We will leave it to the Tobagonians to decide. There should be plans to increase and improve training, Madam Speaker, of hoteliers, staff, Madam Speaker, but this is not the discussion that is being had. We need a better tourism product. We need more investment into our tourism industry. For tourism to aid in reigniting economic activity, Madam Speaker, Budget 2023 to 2024 should at least lay out the foundation for the government and its agencies' implementation of tangible strategic goals, not the same old repeated hotels, not the same old repeated measures, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when the UNC left office in 2015, we were on the road to proper medical tourism. We were on the road to proper sports tourism. Madam Speaker, these things are nowhere in sight today. UNC continues to provide solution to the tourism problem and reiterates that the Honourable Minister should focus on location, Madam Speaker, educate and culturally unique communities, Madam Speaker. We're supposed to be linking these communities, Madam Speaker. How could you invest in tourism and not fix your local infrastructure? How could you speak local tourism and have a deplorable road network, Madam Speaker? How could you speak local tourism, Madam Speaker, our air bridge, our sea bridge is in need of improvement, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need to invest in our tourism product. Madam Speaker, and I would have listened to the minister, and not for once, Madam Speaker, did he address in his presentation on the tourism industry, did he deal with one of the main causes that is affecting our tourism product. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister has spoken on tourism and cultural product, but he has been silent about the elephant in the room. The elephant is the correlation of the increase of crime on our tourism product. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister's presentation was silent on the issue as the PNM government has failed horribly in its provision to adequately secure its own citizens or the protection of its tourists. The crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago has become an international embarrassment, with the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom issuing traveling advisories to advise their citizens Madam Speaker, to their citizens, encouraging their citizens not to come to our Twin Islands state. On the 17th of July, 2023, the U.S. Department of State Bureau Consular Affairs issued a Level 3 travel advisory informing citizens to strongly reconsider travel to Trinidad and Tobago due to crime. The U.S. government, Madam Speaker, personnel are even prohibited from traveling to certain areas in downtown Port-au-Spain. The advisory further indicated that after dark, the U.S. government personnel are prohibited from traveling, Madam Speaker, to places like Fort George, the Outlook, Madam Speaker, and all our beaches. This surely turns away the US dollar, something the country is in need of and has an ongoing shortage. On the 21st of September 2023, the government of Canada issued a statement to its citizens to exercise a high degree of caution in Trinidad and Tobago due to the violent crime, and further advise against traveling to our nation during our annual carnival celebrations and Christmas and the Tobago Jazz Festival. Likewise, on the 4th of August 2023, the UK government warned of the high and increasing level of violent crime in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, these indications are not misplaced as we continue to see reports in our local news of tourists being robbed and killed. Madam Speaker, the proliferation of crime continues to stymie Trinidad and Tobago's ability to scale its tourist product in the diversification of our economy. It underscores the significant challenges that high crime poses to the development and sustainability of the tourism sector. High crime deters prospective tourists, resulting in a decline in visitors' arrivals. Consequently, this leads to diminished revenues, Madam Speaker, something that this country is experiencing. Madam Speaker, when you look at the cultural product of Trinidad and Tobago, outside of our carnival that was given $147 million last year, and according to the books, would have received an allocation of $140 million this year, Madam Speaker. There is no significant investment in our cultural product. Madam Speaker, our cultural product is dying. What we would have seen executed this year for Carnival, the mother of all Carnival, Madam Speaker, turned out to be somewhat the mother of all failures. As we had most stakeholders, if not all, complaining during the Carnival season. Madam Speaker, this government gave mostly all the stakeholders their subvention extremely late, if not the week before Carnival, a day, 3 days before. Madam Speaker, we saw shows being cancelled during the Carnival season. And this government says that it cares about our cultural product. Madam Speaker, I would like to move to issues affecting my constituency in Moruga Tableland. What we see happening, Madam Speaker, in Moruga Tableland, Madam Speaker, and I will start with the water issues. The water issue in Moruga Tableland is something that is not only in my constituency, Madam Speaker, but is something that is affecting the nation at large at the moment. Madam Speaker, allow me to vent the disappointment, Madam Speaker, that is expressed by my constituents on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Madam Speaker, I have areas in my constituency that goes sometimes 3 months without water, without current water supply, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in 2023, I have areas that still don't have WASA lines, Madam Speaker. And these are areas like Khorasan, Lasavan, Madam Speaker, and my constituents deserve better. Madam Speaker, at a moment, notice the failing WASA infrastructure. If water comes today, Madam Speaker, it is never received in areas like Marak. And we would have seen during this local government campaign, boosters was installed, Madam Speaker, and I call it political water, but no water to date in the lines in Marak, Jonjo. Madam Speaker, what I have transparent in the constituency of Moruga Tableland is victimization of certain areas. We have the George Village area that goes without water for 3 months. Robert Village, 3 months, Madam Speaker. I hope that the Minister is taking note to address these concerns. Madam Speaker, in the Minister of Finance contribution, he would have raised different things within the constituency of Moruga Tableland. One of these being the Moruga Agro-processing plant. Madam Speaker, and this takes me to the agricultural sector in the constituency of Moruga Tableland, where we were first promised a Moruga Farm School that never materialized. Madam Speaker, and then we have the Moruga Agro-processing plant that was commissioned in 2020. And to date, although on the books, and I would read, Madam Speaker, the Moruga Agro-processing plant, dated the 14th of July 2020, at the launch of the Agro-processing and Light Industrial Park, it was stated by the then Minister of Agriculture, Madam Speaker, that this facility cost taxpayers $90 million. And, Madam Speaker, it was undertaken by both ETEC and UDICOT in collaboration. Taken from the review of the economy book in 2021, it was stated that the agro-processing plant comprised of 11 lots with purpose-built shells outfitted with offices, washrooms, cold storage. Madam Speaker, constructed on 5 lots, with the remaining 6 lots being developed for leasing. It is also stated that 339 new jobs were quoted at an investment of $12.3 million for the processing of peppers, fish, and fruits. Madam Speaker, taken from the Review of the Economy 2022, it is also noted that August 2022, 5 companies have accepted letters of offer for the factory shells and 2 land lots, 60% occupancy, with a total estimated investment of $15.8 million, which will provide 128 new jobs. Taken from the Review of the Economy book 2023, states that the Moruga Agro-processing and Light Industrial Park consists of 12 developed lots, 6 of which comprised of purpose-built factory shells, which are available for leasing, while the 6 lots are developed sites for leasing. It is referenced that 3 factory shells and 4 lots are available at the park. Madam Speaker, and this brings me to the inconsistencies of these documentation, the Review of the Economy, are far-reaching, wherein in 2021 it states 11 lots altogether, 5 being proposed, build shells, 6 developed lots for leasing, while 2023 states 12 developed lots, 6 comprised of proposed build factory shells and 6 developed sites for leasing. I was contacted, Madam Speaker, 2 days ago concerning this same agro-processing plant. Madam Speaker, when this site was commissioned and even when it was going through the construction phase, there were security firms at the site. Madam Speaker, when I was contacted 2 days ago, I was informed that the contractual security arrangement had came to an end, and ETEC left the facility unmanned, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is $90 million of taxpayers' money, something that was referenced in this budget statement by this Minister of Finance, stating that there is activity on the site, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on visiting that site, there were 2 employees, Madam Speaker. No security service. What is going on with taxpayers' money? Madam Speaker, I would like to ask, is there any activity going on at that site? Yes, we know the book states that there are 3 companies. Yes, we know that when you go up on ETEC website, there are 3 companies, 3 names, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, but my question, are these companies local, Madam Speaker? Local in the sense when this facility was commissioned, it was promised to the constituents of Moruga Tableland. Madam Speaker, employment to the tune of 339 jobs were promised to the constituents of Moruga Tableland. In this budget statement, the minister said 128. Madam Speaker, I would like the minister to give this House a true assessment on the state of that facility. Madam Speaker, I now go to the roads of Moruga Tableland. Again, Madam Speaker, like the agro-processing facility, the roads in Moruga Tableland, or should I say Moruga, the Moruga Road, starting from Piti Cafe, go straight into Marak, was allocated $178 million in 2017. Madam Speaker, this project was awarded. Sod turn-in took place on the 5th of October 2017. And to date, Madam Speaker, that project is still ongoing. That project was scheduled to be completed in 2019. Madam Speaker, to date, that project is no way close completion. And the roads, the Moruga Road, I should say, Madam Speaker, is in a deplorable state. The minister also stated that the project outline, Madam Speaker, would entail Paving, Madam Speaker, from Petit Cafe to Marak, that has not happened. Madam Speaker, several landslips would have been addressed. Madam Speaker, but due to poor accountability, these landslips are being addressed 2 and 3 times on the same spot, Madam Speaker. Further, the minister also stated that this project, Madam Speaker, will take place and be completed, as I stated, by 2019. Madam Speaker, it is time for the minister to give an update to the citizens, to the constituents of Moruga Tableland on the status of this project. Madam Speaker, also, if there are cost overruns, $178 million, Madam Speaker, is a lot of money. Madam Speaker, I would have stood here in the large budget debate and list all the roads in Moruga Tableland, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would have listed the roads from Barapur, being Rosha Douglas, Pina Rock Road, Larafin, Marak, Laloon, Madam Speaker, and I'm painstaking to list these roads again, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, because I will report back here to this House, Madam Speaker, that only 2 of these roads have been addressed, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, Samuel Cooper, 6th Company, 3rd Company, Hindustan Frederick, Madam Speaker, Puran Road, Kumoto Road, Lengwa Road, Puri Road, Warwell Road, Manikul Road, Madam Speaker, Diamond, Madam Speaker. In Diamond Road, Madam Speaker, 12 persons would have lost their homes, Madam Speaker. And this government have not done anything for those citizens. Realize Road, Madam Speaker, over 5 homes would have given way to cave lands. Kunjal Road, Madam Speaker, Kunjal Road North, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am sad to report the neglect that is happening in the constituency of Moruga Tableland. I will now go to the agricultural sector in Moruga Tableland, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when I say agriculture, my colleague before me would have stated the high price of chemical that is affecting, Madam Speaker, my farmers. Madam Speaker, my farmers that was promised the agro-processing plant that still today don't have a market to sell their produce or have a facility to do agro-processing. Madam Speaker, when you look at what is taking place with the Larafin fishing facility that was built by the partnership government, but because it was built by the partnership government outfitted with a gas station, this government refuses to commission the gas station, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and that refusal is seeing my fisher folk traveling from Princestown, which is over 21 kilometers, Madam Speaker, to get gas, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, given the state of my roadway, this is just an accident, God forbid, waiting to happen. Madam Speaker, when you look at what is taking place in the agricultural sector in Moruga Tableland, Madam Speaker, we have the neglect of the Tableland pineapple farmers. When all they ask is for access roads, Madam Speaker. When all they ask is for the outfitting of the predial larceny, Madam Speaker, unit, Madam Speaker. When a farmer invests all that they have, and to go back into the fields the other day, Madam Speaker, and to see that your produce has been reaped, Madam Speaker, how are poor farmers to survive in this country? Madam Speaker, I will take you to the state of the schools in Moruga Tableland. We have schools that are operating, Madam Speaker. In some instances, the school term would have just started in September. I had schools opening with not the full complement of teachers, and this is 5th Company, Anglican. Madam Speaker, I have schools that have not been addressed through the repair program. Madam Speaker, and this is 6th Company, Anglican. And apart from 6th Company, Anglican, I have Nepal Presbyterian. Madam Speaker, even Moruga Composite. Madam Speaker, all my schools are in need of some sort of refurbishment. What took place during the August vacation? Madam Speaker, I would have listened to the speaker before me speak about the $1,000 that was given or allocated in the upcoming fiscal. Parents would have brought books already. When you speak about compassion, Madam Speaker, I have been hosting a book drive since I was a counselor, and it's something I do every year now that I'm the member of parliament. So from then to this, Madam Speaker, I could tell you the true cost of having to outfit parents with their book lists. Madam Speaker, not just their book list, but the school uniforms, the shoes. Madam Speaker, I know the true cost of sending a child back to school. And I know the painstaking look, Madam Speaker, when a parent cannot provide. So I will say too little, too late, Madam Speaker. I had over 200 parents that I had to find resources to assist. But next year is another year, and then we will hear excuses, and then my phone and my office would be filled with parents that would be turned down because of they not meeting the means test, or should I say the P&M means test. Madam Speaker, because in this country, one will learn there are two different types of means tests. We would have just heard the member that spoke before me address with regards to saying that the P&M office, Madam Speaker, and sometimes that is a true assessment, because I, as a member of parliament, would write on behalf of my constituents for more than three-quarters, if not all, the grants that he would have itemized. Forgive me, Madam Speaker, that the member would have itemized for Lavantil East Mover. Madam Speaker, and I could report here that if I get an acknowledgement letter, I get plenty. Madam Speaker, so I am taken aback by this government now coming in their 8th budget to say that they care about the small man. Madam Speaker, they don't care about the small man. They have brought the economy of Trinidad and Tobago to its knees to now come and to throw crumbs, Madam Speaker. But too little, too late, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would have reached out to a lot of persons during my preparation here today, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would have reached out to stakeholders, both in the cultural industry, tourism industry, from my constituents. I would have posted Facebook posts. I would have attended meetings, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and the cry is the same all over. Madam Speaker, I want to talk about the youths of Moruga Tableland. I would have heard, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Youth Development. I would have heard the member for Toko Sandy Grande reiterating all that was stated on Monday by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Youth, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, I would say that member should hang his head in shame, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, how could you sit and endorse this budget, Madam Speaker? Anyone sitting as an elected member of this House and endorses this budget, Madam Speaker, I will say that they are out of touch with the working class, that they are out of touch with the single mothers, that they are out of touch with the, Madam Speaker, with the everyday citizen. Madam Speaker, because if you could endorse this budget, Madam Speaker, you are not going to your constituency office and having office days. Madam Speaker, the UNC government, as my political leader stated, and yes, we are the government, Madam Speaker, we are the government in waiting. We are the government that is with the people and among the people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the youths of Moruga Tableland, I have overqualified persons, Madam Speaker. I have a degree-holding constituent, Madam Speaker, that is working URP, $60 a day, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and I would have listened to the Minister of Youth, and I would have listened to my colleague that would have spoken before me, saying that there is opportunities in this economy for young persons. I would have listened persons speaking about graduates leaving school and the success rate, Madam Speaker. Yes, we have graduates leaving school. Madam Speaker, I have hundreds of graduates leaving school in Moruga Tableland, but no jobs, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, and all the program that is itemized here today, Madam Speaker, there are checks and balances.
Member for Moruga Tableland, your original speaking time is now spent. You have 10 more minutes to complete your presentation if you wish to avail yourself of it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, there are checks and balances that the ordinary citizen do not qualify when it comes to some of these grants, as I stated, listed by these ministries or the members of this House. And that is so sad, Madam Speaker, because when a mother or a parent invests in a child to go to school, Madam Speaker, they expect fair play when it's time for a job, Madam Speaker. We do not expect, Madam Speaker, that a PNM party card has to be attached to your resume.
48.5, please. Okay, so member, I'll just ask you to withdraw that and find another way to say what you'd like to say.
Madam Speaker, I oblige and I withdraw, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, it should not have to be that you have to be affiliated, Madam Speaker, with the other side, Madam Speaker, in order to get a job.
Madam Speaker, standing order 48.5, please. That's the same thing. She said the same thing.
I recognize it's kind of late, and maybe people like Princess Tong and the member for Princess Tong and the member for St. Augustine, maybe they're having some side challenges, okay? But let's hope we could move ahead without those challenges. Member, please withdraw that. If you can't find a way to say it, then forget it and continue.
Madam Speaker, I withdraw, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, what I want to say, getting a job should be based on your resume and should be based on how you perform in school, Madam Speaker. It should not have any other requirement with regards to getting a job. A young person is supposed to be able to put on their Sunday best or a suit and walk in any one of our ministries, public offices, and qualify for a job or undergo the relevant interview, Madam Speaker. But that is not the case. That is not the case. Madam Speaker, and I am reiterating
Members, if you all are no longer interested in the presentation, you could take a walk. All right? Continue.
Madam Speaker, I'm glad that what I'm saying is getting the other side excited. The truth, Madam Speaker, the truth somehow has a way, although they will come to this House and gallivant and embarrass and, Madam Speaker, titillate and grand and make announcement, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, while they do that in here, Madam Speaker, they cannot do that no longer out there. They are the minority government now, Madam Speaker. We are in the majority, Madam Speaker. So we could go outside and gallivant and titillate, but they have to do that in here. They have to do that in here, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, let them have their day. Madam Speaker, just now Trinidad and Tobago will have their way. Madam Speaker, and in my closing, I look forward for a day, and I look forward for that day soon, Madam Speaker, that the sun would rise and cast its rays over Trinidad and Tobago and correct all the wrongs that was done by this administration. It would, Madam Speaker, boost our economy, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the cultural industry that was starved for funding, Madam Speaker, it would get that which it is starved. Because from the moment that this government merged tourism and culture, Madam Speaker, I want to say in my closing that they killed both tourism and they killed the cultural industry from Best Village. Madam Speaker, they said in this budget statement that they're improving spaces. Spaces, and a member of the performing art can't even host a show. Do you know the cost of hosting a show? Do you know the cost of costumes? Madam Speaker, my cultural performers, my cultural stakeholders are the working poor. They have crippled the cultural industry. They have crippled our carnival. We were once, Madam Speaker, the country of the greatest show on the face of the earth. We have felt from grace because of those on that side. But soon a day will come when we would regain our seat as the country that hosts the greatest show on the face of the earth. Soon we will have infrastructure to promote both local and international tourism. Madam Speaker, and they could take to this podium and insult any one of us on this side. We know that is all they can do, Madam Speaker, because the day of reckoning soon comes. Soon, Kamla Prasad Bisasa, the member for Superior, will sit in that seat and reign. Madam Speaker, they laugh, Madam Speaker, but that they know deep down in their heart that that day is coming soon. And I thank you, and I want to thank the constituents of Moruga Tableland. I hear your cries. I know that we don't have water in our pipes. I know our roads are the worst in the country. I know that we would have been given a ministry of works and they get one of the biggest allocations, and we would have by the time next month the minister saying that he no longer has the funding. So that ministry eats the allocation, but it never comes to Moruga Tableland. I know that my schools are in a deplorable state. I know that my youths are without jobs, but I want to tell them, hold on, hold on. That too will soon come to an end, and everything will be okay. Thank you, Madam Speaker.